All right, welcome back. So today we've got something a little different, a real challenge. Usually we're digging into these really rich sources, articles, data, big reports, and we boil them down for you. But today, our source material is one of the shortest and frankly most mysterious things we've ever tackled. Our job isn't to find an answer, but to really understand the question itself.
And here it is. This is the whole thing presented exactly as we found it. 4 words. No punctuation, no context. It's kind of like an artifact we just dug up from some unknown place. So how in the world do you explain something like this? Well, you start by breaking it down. To get a handle on the whole, we've got to look at each individual piece. So let's do a little forensic analysis here, word by word, and see what this question is really made of. Okay, so the first few words actually set up a perfectly clear and logical question. We kick things off with what, which immediately frames this as a search for information. Simple enough. That leads us right to is, and this signals a really direct request for a definition, a state of being. And then it's all grounded by the word natural. This places the whole subject firmly in the physical world. We're talking about something not man-made. It's a completely straightforward inquiry, right up until we hit that final word. And then we land on Dister. This is the heart of the mystery. The first 3 words build this perfect logical framework, but this last word, this is where all that clarity just completely breaks down. This is the enigma. So now our entire investigation really hinges on this one single word. The question structure is totally sound, but its subject is a complete unknown. What is Dister? And here's the core of the problem laid bare. The source gives us a term, Dister, but it offers 0 meaning. It's just a label with nothing attached to it. The question is literally asking for a definition of a word that is, within the source itself, completely and totally undefined.
Now, the most obvious thought here, and I'm sure you're thinking it too, is that this is just a typo. Maybe it's supposed to be disaster. And look, that's a perfectly reasonable assumption for a person to make. But for this explainer, we are bound by the source material. The source says Dister. It doesn't clarify, it doesn't correct itself. If we were to add a letter, we'd be adding information that just isn't there. And our job is to explain what is there, not what we think should be there.
So what does a challenge like this tell us? It forces us to pivot. We have to shift from explaining a topic to explaining the very limits of explanation. And that's not a failure. It's a fascinating look at how we process incomplete information. This really draws a hard line between fact and pure speculation. On the left, that's what the source explicitly gives us. On the right, that's the vast territory of everything it doesn't tell us. We know it's a question, but we have no idea what the intent was, and we certainly can't find the answer. The really crucial point is this. We can't answer the question from the source, but we can define what the source is. And what it is a logically constructed but totally unsolvable puzzle. Its very nature prevents any kind of resolution.
And this brings us to our final takeaway. What can we possibly learn from a question we can't answer? Well, it turns out we can learn a whole lot, but we have to shift our focus.
The real lesson here is about the process. Grappling with ambiguity, analyzing structure, respecting the limits of the data you have, that whole journey is an incredibly valuable intellectual exercise. We didn't learn about Dister, but we learned a lot about the nature of questions themselves.
And so we'll leave you with this. When a source is just a fragment, a puzzle with missing pieces, who is responsible for creating the meaning? Is it the job of the analyst to try and fill in the blanks, or is it to simply map the edges of what is known? It's a question that's worth thinking about long after this explainer is over. Thanks for watching.